Okay, guys, I know this is a lot to digest. I know it's a lot of information overload. You guys have any questions while we have Matthew here? Put your hand up, put a note in the chat. I know Matthew would be happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
Need to collectively engage in some open source intelligence into the BE memo, because that was the foundation upon which the frontline decisions, and we're talking, I can pull up the, let me quickly share my screen, I'll show the actual document showing how many EI cases were denied.
That's it. I was literally just going to ask, because somebody was asking how many were denied.
What about class action? You know, what about class action and calling all of the people who were denied and, you know, putting this in public and making this within all of the groups and trying to get as many people as possible, you know? With your evidence that you presented, you know, this is like, you just unveiled the freaking crime. And if you can get 10, 20, I can easily find within my friends, I can easily find you 5 people who've been denied AI, you know? Yeah. And if you can get the more people and, you know, plus
let's take a deep breath.
Okay, sorry, I'm emotional. Okay, ciao.
No,
thank
it's
you,
okay.
thank you, Matthew. Thank you, and Rebecca. That was great.
You're welcome.
And Bojana, like I think that, you know, Matthew and I talked about this as well. Like, what can we do to, you know, put some more meat behind this? Because as we all know, if you go in there as a lone wolf, they don't give a shit, right? They don't give a shit. So let's look at the numbers just so that we can see what was going on. This is very important.
The first thing I want to say is that they regularly changed the URL at which they were publishing stats so that you can see there's no way to cross compare if you don't actually have those URLs prior pandemic. The longest stretch I could find was a document that was published on May 17th, 2023 that went back to September 2020. So you're looking at the better part of 3 years. There were 10.4 million applications, of which 200,000 for some reason dropped out.
Well, we know why they dropped out. They couldn't continue because they couldn't do it on their own. And they knew that.
Yeah. And you've got 7.7 million approved applications. The reason the beneficiaries is lower is because if you apply for both regular and maternity or sickness and caregiving or something, or if you applied for CERB, then you would qualify multiple times. So out of 10.4 million, 7.7 million applications. So we're talking about 2.5 million applications, 25% were denied. If you go back to the 2019 benchmark, I have that down here. This is the annual report from 2019 showing that 1.1 million people became unemployed. Among those who had contributed to EI and had just cause, right, valid separation is being laid off, or just cause, which was not being done, you had 82, 87, 84, so mid 80s. So you're talking about a 14 or 15% net difference.
Can you say that number again?
So 1.1 million applications in 2019. Historically, between 2017 and 2019, you're looking at mid 80s were approved. When you go back to the longest span I could find, which is from late 2020 to mid 23,
right,
you've got 10 million applications. Now that's only 3 times the length. There's 10 times the application in 1/3 the time. And you're looking at a full 25% of applications were denied. That's 2.5 million applications, 2.5 million lives.
Can we just talk about this for a moment? How many people do you think are employed in Canada in total as of February 2025? Take a wild guess. 40 million people in Canada. How many people do you think are employed as of February
We only
2025?
have 41 million people.
Yeah. How many people?
So as much as I don't trust AI, I have jobs report saying 210,000.
No, employed. People employed in Canada.
Stats can.
Well, no, it's 20 million people. Right?
Yeah.
How
Can't
many
trust
people?
AI.
How many people applied for EI? How many people? 10 million?
There's 10 million applications in 3 years during the pandemic.
And as of this data, that again, let's take her, take it or take or leave it, right? Like, I'm sure it's not entirely accurate. But as of February 2025, 20 million Canadians are employed. I'm not talking quality employment. That's just what it's saying. And in those, it was 3 years, right?
Yep.
10 million people applied for EI, and 80
half the workforce essentially at some point during that 3 years.
This is exactly what I'm getting at. And guys, you do know that unemployment numbers come from unemployment benefits. So not only is this saving them millions, gazillions of dollars, but then they can go, oh, look, unemployment's not that bad. This is, I just like looked right now because I earlier was looking at how many people are employed now compared to like 2017. So to see, okay, hold on, this can't be right. This cannot be right. This can't be.
20 million, I found a labor report from StatsCan.
It keeps saying
that says the same thing.
Holy shit. Can we stop and think about this for a moment?
20.1 million people according to StatsCan for fiscal year 24.
Do you guys see how devastating this is? You see how, like, just imagine if half of the labor force over 3 years was not employed in their regular employment. Now, let's assume that they got other shitty jobs, which a lot of people did, right? Let's just say half. So 5 million people. So how many people are left without full-time, meaningful employment in Canada? This right here, these numbers are mind-blowing. And then don't forget about people like me. I was never eligible for EI because I was a contractor for 20 years, and I never put into EI because I never thought we'd be in this situation, right? And I wouldn't have gotten it anyway because, or whatever. Wow.
And it's well documented that 30-40% are considered hidden labor market.
Yeah.
They're either under the table, they're doing hourly, or they're not counted in the stats, whether it's for innocent or calculated reasons.
This is sad.
I think the BE memo needs to be brainstormed and followed up, as well the templates.
Mm-hmm.
They're a clear violation of Supreme Court precedents. I mean, there's just I'll just read just a few of the questions with the template engine. Who wrote the boilerplate language combinations, which is text citation and footnotes? Did the same person compose both sets of legally conflicting templates? Right. So if a template says,
you want to show this while you're
talking? I can do
that. Yeah. We're not bankrupt. Nobody's bankrupt. All you do is print money. Just print some money. Money's not even real.
So when you have a template that says KVP is outside your jurisdiction, and you have the same tribunal member issuing a decision 2 days later saying that KVP gives them the right to implement the policy, did the same person write those templates? Because it wasn't written by the tribunal member who inserted.
And I'm sorry,
those
KVP,
templates.
KVP.
KVP is a Supreme Court precedent that says that if you're going to mandatorily insert or unilaterally impose an employment policy, it must be compliant with the contract and it must be reasonable.
And
otherwise, it requires
follow the
either
law.
arbitration or consent.
Yeah.
So, who approved obviously unfair, legally contradicting templates? Who authorized their publication into Atrium? Someone had to actually approve that that template is being stored inside the template database. All right, who has the necessary system permissions to do that? What triggers Atrium to implement particular templates? Is it keyword driven, or do people just search for a term and they search for policy and then it spits out a bunch of matching templates? Right? Who programmed the trigger events? If there's conflict, how is it handled? Are these events tracked and logged, either in the database or by management? How do you manage the user interface for templates? Is there a version control system? Can someone go in and just arbitrarily change existing templates? Was there any team meeting or training session where they discussed templates where now you feel like using a particular template has added weight because I've been told this is the direction we're going based on guidance from the ministry? And if we violate the training by not using that template, like what are the implications? What are the consequences for removing system inserted templates? In AL, Mark Leonard is no longer a tribunal member. He wasn't reappointed. And I don't think he had any cases after that one. Have any tribunal members complained about the unfairness it causes? What happened? Are there policies? Is there discipline? Is there a record? These are all questions that need to be answered if we have tribunal members outsourcing their decision-making processes to something that is written by someone other than them, when those templates are outcome determinative. That's the basis of the BE memo too, right? The Supreme Court is clear. Davila, paragraph 95. It is unacceptable for decision makers to expect that their decision will be upheld if it is made on the basis of internal records that are not available to that party. Lex Acker had to do a series of ATIPs. He had to ATIP the ATIP to be able to get access to the BE memo. And we are the only case that I've seen in the whole country that managed to have that inserted into evidence. I think that's providential. So we'll have to get a ruling from the court. Are they going to ignore it? Or are they going to have to render some sort of decision on it?
And
I guess that remains to.
You know that they used Vavilov, the Attorney General of Canada was using Vavilov in the case regarding prorogue with the Justice Center of Constitutional Fuck-Ups, the JCCF. So I mean, this is like this is like the gold standard of case law. I just want to make note that Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, if that Vavilov is the governing administrative law case, all tribunal decisions must comply.
So
here's Baker.
So I'm curious about the opportunity to bring into this case KPMG and the outsource agency, which I think is Atrium Global, for the Atrium tool, to look at the contracts and to bring people in on subpoena to ask them questions about the who, what, why, where, when, because these are not government people. These are third parties, and I think it would be
I put as much as I can into our case. I think you're right. However, we are appealing for judicial review of a tribunal decision.
Right.
So I don't know on what grounds there's jurisdiction. That would require a specific action. I do think we should. I think there should be some strategy by the civilians of this country. To create targeted ATIP campaigns and spread it out so it can't be tracked to a single person. And again, there's only so much I want to say on recorded
No,
rumble.
that's fine, but
I think there are things that can be done.
Yeah.
Especially if it's split up.
Yeah.
Because these issues have to be addressed. Just BE memo and the templates on their own. And the plausible deniability of a contractor farming it out. I don't think that's good enough because under Vavilov and other cases, decision makers still own their decision. So even if they said the template put it in, under governing case law, if they are the ones who are saying, yes, I agree with this, here's your decision, they're still responsible for that. So I don't think they can pass it off and just say, well, the template made me do it. No, you issued a decision that had the template.
Well, and also, ignorance of the law is no excuse, right? Like that's the whole premise. So
Section 19 of the Criminal Code.
It would be very interesting to see kind of how, if at all possible, to see how were they engaged, who engaged them, what were the conversations, how did they get their direction, who was in all of the 5 W's and the N and H, because this is, and I get really pissed off when I know NGOs are involved, because it's NGOs that are, some of them are, they're global entities hiding as these grassroots organizations. Some truly are dum-dums that think they're actually helping, and it would just be really fascinating to understand. And again, in what fucking world, excuse my French, are you outsourcing government policies that has such an impact? And especially when this isn't just like, a federal program that's a bonus. People pay into this their entire lives. It's theirs. Oh my gosh, Matthew.
Yeah, and I've got dozens of statements from the parliamentary Hansards where members of parliament, cabinet ministers felt the same. Like there are dozens of House members and senators when this bill was passing made sure to put their intent on the record. And their intent is quite clear. They were aware that situations or employers could abuse this just cause principle. And if we're going to deny someone EI up front on just cause, we had better make sure, absolutely sure, that we do that just cause. That is why is the determining factor for EI. So we have statutes being completely ignored for all kinds of ridiculous reasons.
Yeah, it's we'll follow the rules when it's you, but when it's us, we'll do what we want. So
I have a few hundred pages of Hansards in our evidence. I do think this is something.
That itself, the fact that it took such intense debate shows the valid concerns and risks. And now remember, guys, this is 35 years ago when Parliament was a different situation than it is today, because now it's just theater, puppetry, bullshit nonsense. But there was a time when, if you go back and look at old debates and old cases with the Supreme Court of Canada, there was a time when they actually cared. They actually were concerned about public welfare. They don't give a shit now because it's been so perverted along the way. But I just think that's very telling, the length of the debates that took place over. Yeah. In reality, if you don't look at it within context, it's not a big adjustment in a piece of law, right? It's a few lines. So
thousands of pages of text, hundreds of references to just cause. I can't. To be fair, I haven't done an exhaustive study, but I can't think of any policy change by the government that was subject to as much scrutiny and debate as this one. And to have them bury policy reform inside a supply bill, which meant you're voting for a collapse of government if you don't pass the supply bill, to bury policy change inside that as a permanent policy change, that was called out. by
Yeah.
people saying this has never happened in our country's history. And I mean, this is all, I think people knew at the time it was happening, which is why so many people were sure to, to have their statement made in the parliamentary record,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
that when it blew up, they could all say, hey, look, I made my piece. I
Yeah.
didn't like it.
Yeah.
Even
No,
members of the PC party didn't like it.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we have a hand up, which is Mr. Mike Stroh. Hi, Mike Stroh. How are you?
Hello, how are you?
Good.
Hello.
So I was just trying to think of the practical solution, and I'm like, what if we just all stopped paying into EI because clearly they're not doing what they said they were gonna do with it, right?
You don't have a
And
choice.
is there a way to like start our own equivalent that could be an option for people? Is there a way to do that?
I
If you're
believe
self-employed, you can
I
choose
thought you
not to
could
pay into
opt
it.
out. I thought you could opt out of EI.
If you're self-employed,
Yeah, which is one of the reasons why I was self-employed.
the way the statute's constructed, it has to come through the employer.
Mm-hmm.
It's extortion in a sense, right? They
That
have
is
to,
total extortion, yeah.
they have to pay into it. They don't have a choice. If the HR and accounting departments do not remit their regular remittances based on wages, they can lose their ability to operate their business. It's like income tax, right? It's essentially income tax, except run through an insurance program.
Well, an income
So
tax is,
I mean, you,
CRA is a
unless you want to be
corporate
self-employed,
entity,
yeah, the employer takes both off, right? They
Yeah.
either take your income tax off or they take your EI remittances off, and if they fail to make either payment, they can be charged or shut down for failing to.
Got it. Got it.
Uh,
All right. Is that your question, Mike Stroh?
Yeah, like that answers my question. It's just like, now I don't have any
Self-employed,
more ideas. Yeah,
I think
self-employed.
that's the only way, is to opt out. If you're self-employed, you can choose whether or not you want to
Yeah, if you're
contribute.
self-employed, you have to actually actively apply. Like you have to do the work to contribute. But as being self-employed, you don't have to. There's no obligation being self-employed to contribute.
That would be quite interesting
And
to
I
have
never
to
have.
prove like everything. Like if you're self-employed, to have to prove like, oh, I lost my job, like, and I
No,
have
if you're
nothing to do with
self-employed,
it.
you don't get EI because you haven't contributed. Unless you are contributing, you will not get EI. So someone like myself, been self-employed for 20 years, if a contract was terminated early, I wouldn't be eligible for EI because I never paid into it. So it's like, in optimal times, when before this bullshit, that was like the give and take that you had. You pay less taxes, you're not paying EI, you're not paying a CPP, you do that yourself. But at the end, but you also don't have EI should you lose your contract. So, but thank you for your question. It was a good question.
Thank you.